Living a life of virtue, living a life of love. Hello, nice to have you back with us again. This is your panel discussing living a life of virtue, living a life of love. I'm going to just have briefly the panel again, just give you their names, and then we'll begin.
Hi, I'm Carla Green, and I'm from Urbana, Illinois.
I'm Lisa Jones, and I'm from Decatur, Illinois.
Sue Buttrey, Sullivan, Illinois.
And I'm Angie Hoffman from Carmi, Illinois.
And on this discussion, we're going to be discussing how do you build or destroy your home. Wow. So first off, how important is it for a woman to have wisdom?
I think it's important for everyone to
have absolutely is. That's gender non-specific.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
There are so many competing voices in our heads in the world.
Yes.
And so we need a way or a path or a system or a process for how to discern which voice are you going to listen to.
Exactly.
And so I think that is
absolutely.
I know I have a concert of things going on in my head all the time.
Constantly.
And so
yes,
sometimes it's a little loud.
Yes,
So being able to hear that voice and have a plumb line of where you're headed.
And there can be so many misleading voices that
Absolutely.
sound good.
True. Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's why we need wisdom, and we know wisdom comes from the Lord.
Yes.
And we know where we get our wisdom.
And we have to know that we can ask Him.
Yes.
You know, ask Him for wisdom in certain situations that come up, and then trust that He gives us that.
Right.
Right, exactly.
And follow that lead,
Right.
follow the direction He is.
Right. Have any of
leading
you
us.
ever found, any of you, I'm sure we all have, where you have thought something was right and you may have believed it all your life, or that's the way you were brought up, and then through the wisdom of God, it was like, wow, that wasn't right at all.
Yes.
Many times.
Many times.
Right, absolutely.
Speaking of voices, one of the, I think, key voices that hurt women is their internal voice, because we're emotional.
Yes.
And we tend to operate on our emotions. And so, you know, if we're hurt, we tend to go from the hurt. If we're disappointed, we move out of disappointment. We tend to not want to wait. So wisdom is so important with women because we're so emotional. And God created us that way, but we tend to act on our emotions more than anything before we ask God to guide and lead us. So we, if something happens, we emotionally get caught up in whatever's going on, and we react to that, and then we wonder, wow, how did I get
And I
here?
think wait was such a key word that I just heard from you, because I mean, as a mother and a woman, I want to be a problem solver, and I want everybody to be okay, and I want everybody to be happy. And so for me, it's always the fastest road from A to B, but that may not be the best. Like the best may be waiting in the pain, waiting in the sadness, waiting in disappointment to see, because you might jump on the wrong train just to get away from the situation, and it will come back. And so
So often waiting before you speak.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
In the situation. Oh, yes, just a little one.
Yeah, right.
If you could think something disturbs you, something makes you angry, something makes you, anything but happy, and you're, for me anyway, it just wants to come out of my mouth.
I totally agree.
Yes.
And learning to hold your tongue and
Wait.
wait.
That's exactly the truth. And sometimes with me, but Lord, I want to know why. And it's like, you don't always have to know why. Trust me.
right,
Right.
absolutely.
And I think we confuse the why with the wisdom.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely,
Because we
we
think
do.
if we know
Yes,
why, we have wisdom. But sometimes not knowing is having wisdom.
Yes.
And as you're saying, being quiet sometimes is wise not to say anything at all.
Yes.
So we tend to want to react. We're quick to say something,
So how do we use that wisdom to build our house? Don't you agree that unfortunately there is the Cinderella where you're going to get married, he's going to fulfill all your needs, and life is just going to be beautiful, and then you have your first conflict. And how do you use wisdom to build that house instead of tearing it down?
I keep hearing wait. I mean, it is just such waiting for the.
oh wow.
communication is number one.
Right.
Working together, loving each other beyond the problems that arise, because we're all going to have them.
Yes, we are.
And trusting that the Lord is going to be there with you through any situation.
Right.
Learning to rely on Him even in the bad situations. And
Right.
I don't, I don't know.
And I think with the building up your house too, I just think like, especially when it comes to marriage, like I'm bringing in all of the background bias, everything that my family has instilled in me.
Yes.
And my husband's bringing all of his. And then since it's my second husband, we have now two households from both too. And so if you're going to build your house, it's not about I move all of mine in and he just has to figure out how to live there.
Yeah.
It's taking the best and letting the rest go, and what's the best for both of us. And so there is a waiting too of just just laying down our agendas. Like I think the best wisdom I heard was when you are asking for something and petitioning the Lord for it, is to ask for indifference, like because I care more about A than I do B, and so I'm going to keep looking for how A is going to work out.
Oh, yes.
And so if I pray for indifference, where whatever's best, then that's what rises to the top. But if I care more about one, then I'm going to keep seeing how does it work out.
Yeah.
And that is real wisdom.
Right.
And I think another one is knowing your goal is on down the road. You're going to have bumps.
Absolutely.
And not see that as an end, but it's a bump.
It is.
But you've set your eyes on down the road.
Right. And how exciting it is to build something together with someone that you have partnered with.
Absolutely.
And it shouldn't be a threat to who you are to
No.
build something with someone else.
I know, exactly. And those bumps actually help solidify.
Yes,
if
they
you
do.
will let them do that.
Right.
There again, if you use the wisdom like you were saying and being indifferent, if this is better, I do not have to have my way.
Right. Right.
Boy, isn't that a tough
I
one?
know.
Yeah, that is
And
a tough
women
one.
being fixers that
Yeah.
we are, because
Yes.
we want to fix everything.
Absolutely.
Well,
we
for
wanna-
your husbands,
we wanna
for your
fix
kids.
every
Yes,
kid.
for your friends.
And so you have to
Yes.
have that wisdom when to know what to say and what not to say. I can remember when my oldest son, he was probably 17 at the time, and I knew he was doing stuff he shouldn't have been doing, and so I would be up at night just, saying, talking to God and saying, God, do this and God, do that, and blah, blah, blah. And God said, shut up and go to bed. I literally heard him say that, and he said, go to bed. You asked me once. So having the wisdom to know when I asked him, he's doing it,
Rest
but
in it.
we have to know, patient to know he's going to do it, and
Yes.
having wisdom
Yes, and
to
just
let
turning
him
it
do
over
it,
to him.
let him do it his
Right.
way, and let me leave it alone. So sometimes we need that wisdom to know how God is working it out.
Yes.
Even though it don't look like it,
Right.
even though when
Right.
it's all chaos and hell and stuff is all messed up, and you need that wisdom to know
Yes.
it's still good.
Yeah, even though I don't see God in it right
Right.
now, I know He's in it.
I know He's in it.
I love that example. And another example that a woman had given me, she said she was having problems with one of hers as well. And she said, when they came in, I would want to go, but this and this and this. And the Lord said, didn't you turn it over to me?
Right.
And she said, but I need to. And He said, and how's that working out for you?
That's right, exactly. Well, and I think even as like friends or even just for your spouse to just sit, like when they're having trouble, to just sit and wait in it with them.
Yes.
I mean, we are
Yes.
not good sitters and waiters
No.
at all.
No.
But yet, Jesus is in the storm, and we have to remember that. And it's just so hard to I'm just going to sit with you,
Right.
and I'm going to cry with you, and I'm going to be sad with you, instead of, how many times is our husbands, like I tell my husband something, I didn't want a solution, I just wanted to tell
just
you about
wanted-
it.
yeah.
And so it bothers me when he
don't need
does
you to
it, but I
fix.
don't see it in
Yeah.
myself.
Right.
And you can also take it from your husband to even your children, especially as mothers wanting to get involved with your married children's
Right.
lives.
you
And you can tear
bet.
down your
Yes.
house,
You
your
bet.
relationships
Yes.
by wanting them to do things the way you
Yes.
did
Oh,
it,
that's
by
powerful.
meddling and
Right.
jumping in there. And
Right.
I really never thought I was bad about that until my daughter had her first baby, and she was doing things differently than what I did.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it was hard for me just to, you know, shut up and
Right.
back out, you know, and let her learn.
So good.
You know, there were some things that I told her that I was right.
Right.
But they
you
have
know,
to see
but she
it.
had to see it, and she had,
Right.
you know, to learn
Right.
it. And then there's other things that she's done that I didn't, you know, that I would have
Right.
never done.
Right.
And that works out fine. So
Right.
it's learning to step back and let our children grow into what God's created them to be,
Right.
not what He created us to
Right.
be.
But boy, isn't that true? The foolishness out of your mouth
Right.
can
Come on.
absolutely
Come on.
tear down.
Tear
Yes.
down.
Exactly.
Yes.
Tear down.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
we continue to speak it and not realizing what came out of our mouth.
Yes.
And we wonder why the situation is getting worse and not better.
And once those words are out there,
They're- yeah,
they're
they
out
have
there.
No
life.
matter
They
how
can't
many
bring
times
back.
you say sorry.
That's right. they're out
Absolutely.
there.
They have
They've heard
life.
it.
Right. And
Yeah.
Angie, I think you said something really key too about being right. Like, how many times do we feel like we have to be right and we have to be
Right.
heard? And I think, I don't know whether it's because I'm getting older or because it's just my journey, but it's like, no, I've asked you to be righteous, not to
Yes.
be
Right.
right.
Yes.
And so it's not about beating somebody over the head
Right.
with, I know I'm
Exactly.
right. It's
Right.
like, no,
Exactly.
it's
And again,
Exactly.
there's the difference between the pride and the humility.
exactly.
You know, when you can walk in humility, when you know that you are righteous.
Right.
And you do not have to be right.
Right, exactly. And watching them in their journey, like your kids, that's so powerful. Like,
is.
okay, you might be making a wrong mistake, and I'm just going to pray that it doesn't have devastating impact. But, you know, you just pray for them.
And I know right now the Lord's saying there's someone out there that is going through this issue right now. And you just feel like you have to be right.
Right.
No, you don't.
don't.
Yeah.
You just have to be righteous.
And when I think of foolishness, I think of it as termites in a house. You know, you see this beautiful house, and termites, they can start out really small, but when you let it ignore it and it grows and they grow and they grow, and sooner or later the house begins to deteriorate
Right.
and it falls.
Right.
And you wonder what happened?
Exactly.
How did this
Exactly.
happen?
And it
How
looks
did this
okay.
come about?
It looks okay
Right.
for a long time
Right.
until it's too late.
Because the
Yes.
termites are inside the walls.
good.
You don't
Yeah.
see them.
It's really
That's
good.
good.
So
picture.
that foolishness is there, but you don't realize you created it. And when the house begins to fall apart,
That's
you wonder,
right.
well, what happened?
What happened?
What did I, where did this come from? Because the foolishness that was there, and you realize that you created it.
Yes.
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 And the house begins to
Right.
deteriorate, and it
Right.
falls apart, and nobody knows how did we get here? How did my children get, or the
And
marriage?
often that foolish, I mean, it's over nothing.
Nothing.
Right,
It
exactly.
usually
over
starts that
nothing.
way.
Yes.
Right.
That's
Right.
So,
So it kind of gets us back to where we kind of started with. It takes the wisdom to know. doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I just keep thinking of in scripture, there's just so much imagery about Jesus being the
Yes.
foundation and being the builder. And like, I think if we firmly plant ourselves on Him being our foundation, then everything else that rises up out of that
Yes.
will be a good thing.
Right. Now, do you think this also enters in when we're talking about wisdom? Because it is the fear of the Lord.
It is.
It is the fear of the Lord. And it isn't, you aren't the center of your marriage, you're not the center of your life even.
Right. And I think
you
it's
have the
part of that
foundation.
letting go. We just don't realize who God is. We have whenever you have the wrong image of who He is,
Yes.
it doesn't work out well.
No. Right.
And so when we realize that He has a better, grander,
Yes.
more
Yes.
and incredible plan for us that is actually tied to how we are wired,
Yeah, how
then
He
why
made
would we
us.
not let go and let Him build it?
Absolutely.
But we are just such like, oh, we got to control it because what if it doesn't work
Right.
out quite
Right.
right? It doesn't
Yeah.
look
Right.
okay to the
Exactly.
world.
Right.
And that's just,
Yeah.
that's foolishness.
That
Yes,
is
it is.
foolishness.
It is.
And so it is maturing and actually even knowing what foolishness is.
That's
Right.
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 yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so many times He has told us, I created you. I love Psalm 139. I knew you
Yeah.
when you were in your mother's
Right.
womb. I
Yes.
formed you.
Yes.
Right.
And yet we go all our lives sometimes trying to be someone different.
Right. And I think when goes back to what we talked about earlier, when the world has created a certain picture,
Yes,
we try to
it
fit
does.
into that picture. So
Right.
we begin to make it look like that picture, and we, almost like you're coloring, you go outside of the line and you're trying to erase the outer part where you went outside of the line, and you do anything to make it look perfect. So that foolishness created what you didn't want it to create, and then you wonder how. So we got to remember that he created us. And so my picture doesn't look like your picture.
Right.
It doesn't look like your picture or whoever's watching.
Right.
Your picture doesn't have to look like my picture. God created the perfect picture
That's
in their
right.
life. So my household, like, I'm not married, but my picture is different.
That's right.
But doesn't mean that it's out of order or that God doesn't love me any less. So,
Absolutely.
that foolishness that we sometimes allow the world to create in our lives.
That's right.
We definitely have to pray for wisdom. And he said, ask and it will be given to us.
Yes.
And that wisdom knows that it is also not perfection.
It's not
It's
perfection.
never perfection.
And it's never past the point of reconciliation
Yes.
because of what
Yes.
Jesus did on the cross.
Exactly.
Everything can be redeemed.
Everything.
Can be
Everything.
reconciled.
Yes.
And so, we as women men too, but just so guilt and shame and condemnation. It's like, that is not from
not.
him.
Right, because that's the way the world system sees it. When we're in the kingdom of God.
I think we have to remember, sometimes the situations, even relationships in our families with husbands or with children, that situation, that relationship looks dead, but God raises from the dead.
Yeah,
That's what he
absolutely.
does.
Yes.
There's don't lose hope. Don't lose hope in these situations. There's with God, there's always hope.
There is always hope. You're
Always hope.
absolutely right. Well, thank you for being with us, and stay tuned and come back for the wrap-up. Welcome back, and we are going to do a wrap-up on how you build or tear down your house with wisdom. Well, girls, what do you think? We have really had a great attorney
We have,
here,
yes.
and I think we brought out many good points.
Right.
And particularly for younger women, it is hard to explain when you just say wisdom.
Right.
Yes, it
Absolutely.
is.
And
It is.
sometimes it takes maturity. So do you think another key issue is, again, find a woman?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
In
That
fact,
you
that's what I was going to say. We really devalue the community in which
Yes.
we are supposed to be in,
Right.
but we still need discernment and wisdom because you might have an off day, and so
Right.
you may not be
Right.
speaking from
That's
the Lord,
right.
and somebody else
Right.
might be, and so having 2 or 3 that you can check and taking it back, and I just think we need to build more community amongst women because
Right.
so
I
many
agree.
times.
And there's
I agree.
safety in a multitude of counselors.
Absolutely.
I know with my 2 sisters, we're very much alike, but we all have different.
Right.
I mean, we can, if we have a problem, we can talk it through, and because each one sees the situation
Right.
a little bit different, and it
That's
brings
key.
wisdom.
That's key.
Yes, it
It
brings
does.
wisdom.
And for those women who don't have sisters,
Yes. Absolutely.
or they have a sister and their sister is not that person
Right.
that they feel comfortable, try to look outside the walls of your
Yes.
own house or find someone you think you can confide in.
Right.
And even to us, we need to reach out.
Right.
Come of our box
Right.
and not be
Yes.
afraid to,
Yes.
even approach another woman or open up the door for that woman to feel
Yes.
comfortable enough to share.
Exactly,
Because
yes.
we, even with us, we still are growing.
Oh, yes, we never
And
stop.
we never stop. So, we need that other woman to be able
Absolutely.
to pull
And how
from.
much of our insecurity keeps us away from even
Right.
approaching somebody?
Yes.
And
True.
it's like, but our
Yes.
heart cries out for belonging to,
Yes.
to something. And
Yes.
even giving, certain people in your life, not everyone, but a few close people permission to have the accountability that you need. Like, this is what I'm working towards. And this
Yes.
is like, you have permission to speak into my life when I go off this way.
Exactly.
Yes,
And
exactly.
be willing
And I
to
will
take
listen. Yes.
take the harsh word,
Right.
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 Even if it's not in love, and just go, okay, what's the truth in that?
Yes.
Because that is the iron sharpening iron and
Yes,
building
it
a better
is.
house.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And I think it definitely adds when you say, Lord, I'm not sure who that person is. You bring that person.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because it may
And
not
He
be
will.
someone we would think of at all.
Yes, and He'll do it.
Absolutely.
Because He
yes.
knows we need that. He created us to need each other.
Yes.
And, you know, to love each other and to draw on each other.
Absolutely.
And I think we have a tendency as women, I mean, being, you know, in high school, you always kind of go back, I'm really just 16, I'm not 47. And so to not get into these groups of tearing people down
yes,
or tearing your
yeah.
husbands
Right.
down.
Yes.
And like just to fight against that and go, okay, but wait a minute, let's like
Yes.
stop it. You have permission, giving y'all permission to stop
stop.
the conversation.
I
Yes.
just got back from the most awesome conference, and the whole theme was you bless and you don't curse.
Right,
I mean,
absolutely.
it can stop your
true.
blessing, it stops their blessing,
Right.
and it brings nothing but chaos.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, in any situation.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you for being with us.